founder and national director of the Movement for a People's Party. And today, I'm really happy to say that we have as our special guest, Portia Boulger from Ohio. She was a Bernie national delegate. Many of you guys probably remember her. She was on a call with us and when we were Draft Bernie. And she led one of our calls. She was our guest speaker. And she also made the famous prediction that went viral at the DNC, at the Democratic National Convention in 2016, that if the Democratic Party went through with it and blocked Bernie Sanders and gave Hillary the nomination, that we would end up with Donald Trump as president. And here we are with Trump as president. So Portia's proven a bellwether in the progressive movement, and of course, a huge activist in Ohio. And Portia recently, Portia had been organizing for Dennis Kucinich and recently stepped down from the Ross County Democratic Party Executive Committee because of the party's shenanigans, which we see all across the country against Dennis Kucinich in order to put up establishment candidate Richard Cordray. So, Portia, we were talking right before we went live about, what do you think that's going to do? You made that famous prediction that Trump was going to win. Do you think it's going to be a similar situation because the party once again obstructed the progressive candidate?
Well, thank you for having me on. First of all, I appreciate it a lot. I think that there's just an extreme problem within our party. And I want to preface this with, I really like a lot of the people in the party. I want to make sure that everybody listening knows that there are a lot of really good people in the Democratic Party. There are people in the Ross County Democratic Party that I love dearly, I've lived here all my life. So this is extremely difficult for me to leave the party. It is very emotional, and I just want to emphasize that the majority of the people within the party that I know are good folk that are getting lied to, okay? And they've been taught to be loyal to the party so deeply that gets all mixed up with their moral compasses and everything else. So I just want to really make it clear, everybody, I don't hate the people in the Democratic Party, but I do very much despise with everything in me what's going on. I don't hate Hillary. I don't hate Donald Trump. I'm working hard not to. I'm almost there to hate Donald. But when we hate others, we hurt ourselves. And we're not doing anything good when we hate. So I want to preface it with all that, Nick. But yeah, there's a big problem. I don't believe that Richard Cordray can beat Mike DeWine. He went head to head with him for the Attorney General spot, and he lost. So he's old news. I don't trust him. I have Mother Jones ran the news Mother Jones ran an article several years ago about Richard Cordray that curled my hair. And there was a young woman who was an inmate at Marysville Prison in Ohio, a young Black woman, and she was raped by a prison guard. Fast forward to when Cordray was in office as Attorney General, and the young woman came out. God, I feel so terrible. I can't think of her name. I believe her first name's Melissa, but don't quote me on that. But anyway, she filed a civil suit against the prison guards, and Richard Cordray chose to use the power of his office to try to block it. Now, he will come back and say, oh, I was Attorney General. That was my job. Well, I'm sorry, Rich. You have choices to make in terms of what you're going to do with the power of that office. And he did not have to go after this young woman and try to keep her from having justice. Okay? When she came forward and made a complaint about the rape, she was thrown in solitary confinement. I mean, we're talking about torturous situations here. And he went after her and tried to stop her. But she went all the way to the Supreme Court of the United States, and she got a unanimous decision. That is serious business. There is a video that was put out years ago by Progress Ohio As far as I know, the people behind Progress Ohio support Rich. So this is like a smear job, okay? Rich, when he was Attorney General, was in front of the camera at an open carry rally at the Ohio State House. We're talking about white nationalist KKK people, all right? We're talking about severe racists. And Richard Cordray used the power of his office as Attorney General to let these people open carry on the lawn of our house, the People's House. He made it so that they did not have to put up a huge retainer for insurance in case something went wrong. And he stood up there and bragged to these people and courted them for their endorsement and talked to them about all the things that he had done for them to make sure that their God-given Anglo-American right to carry. We all know what that means, okay? They come back and they say it's because it's written in the law. He is an intelligent, extremely intelligent man. He thought about the words he was going to use. While he was talking to these gun-toting, they had AR-15s on their shoulders, all right? They also had extremely racist bumper stickers and signs against President Obama. So you talk about, like, it's maddening. In addition to that, when Richard Cordray was over the Consumer Bureau, he had over 25% EEO complaints filed by staff who were Black and brown people and women. 25% is unheard of, Nick. It took him 4 years to implement an EEO policy. I've been fighting for the rights of women and minority people all my life, and I cannot damn vote for anybody that supports white nationalist thinking. And I'm putting that mildly, all right? I am disgusted. I will not support a party. When I saw the numbers come in on primary night, I immediately sent a text to my local Democratic chair, Dustin Prohl, who is a good man. I want to make that very clear. Dustin is a good guy. And let him know that I was resigning and why I resigned. And so here I am.
Well, Portia, it's great to have you with us. So many of us have stories that resemble your own, stories that are kind of coming to terms and breaking up with the Democratic Party, you know, as an institution, you know, and we all recognize and we all have friends that are over in the Democratic Party, you know, and that are still there and still, you know, believe in that. And those are, just like you said, those people are our allies. You know, we fight in solidarity with them. They're not our enemies. It's the institution and the system that can pick people like Richard Cordray over someone as incredible and remarkable and you know and accomplished of a candidate as Dennis Kucinich. You know, Dennis, I mean, you can hardly think of people who make a better candidate in Ohio or in the country to be governor of Ohio, you know, and as a progressive candidate. I mean, he was a longtime representative, U.S. representative, ran for president in 2008 as a progressive alternative, and was running on a very strong progressive platform, right? I take it you were organizing for him, right? Right. Yeah. And so, you know, how and here's what gets me too is that he raised a good amount of money. You know, it wasn't what Richard Cordray raised, but I think we as progressives, we're never going to like beat the establishment by outraising them. You know, so he did a pretty good job. He raised hundreds of thousands of dollars. You know, he's obviously has full name recognition, you know, just known across and respected across Ohio. Obviously, the establishment, you know, had tried all of these, the typical smear jobs against him. You know, they went after him supposedly for, you know, for getting together with Assad in Syria, you know, and just tried to twist that. But
Well, they did a good job. They did a real good job. And I can't quote you the name of the company, but it came out toward the very end, and it can be found on Dennis's Twitter feed. But some group who pays attention to and researches the ads that are put out by campaigns, the smear job ads, they were relentless, just relentless. And Richard Cordray's campaign was behind a lot of them. I don't know if it was behind all of them, but it came out at the very last minute. And it's just really wrong because, and that underscores another reason why I don't believe that Richard Cordray can beat DeWine. And I don't want DeWine to be the governor of Ohio. I don't. I want the Green candidate to be the governor of Ohio. If we can't have Dennis, then we get a progressive, right? And Constance is the only progressive on the ticket now. And I hope with everything in me that every Democrat that has a moral compass, that really does care about the rights of women and Black and brown people, get behind Constance. We don't have to let the Democratic Party dictate to us who is going to be our governor or our president or our city council person or any other candidate. It is up to the people to claim their power and say no. And people say, oh my God, we can't let DeWine win. Well, hell, the Democratic Party just set us up to let him win. So let's do something, Ohio. Let's get behind Constance. Period.
Right. We
vote
should
for Constance.
vote.
And that does not mean, let me emphasize, that does not mean that I'm going green. I voted for Ralph Nader when he ran for president against Al Gore. Al Gore ran a horrible campaign. Anybody that says Ralph Nader screwed that up for Al Gore is an idiot. Plain and simple. Al Gore didn't even take his home state of Tennessee. He's not a bad guy, but he ran a horrible, boring campaign, and Richard Cordray is a boring guy. And he supports white nationalists. I don't want a damn white nationalist sympathizer in my state house. I've already got one in the White House.
And 2018 was kind of like the first testing ground, too, of what was a progressive strategy to come to power, you know, because I want to talk to you about the Poor People's Campaign in a little bit, because I know you're organizing in a big way for that. And we are too. But, you know, this 2018, when we finished, after the nomination was stolen from Bernie in the Democratic Party, you know, and many progressives went into the Democratic Party in an effort to change that and retake that institution and make that the route to power, that the vehicle for the political revolution. And so 2018 is kind of like the first field test that we have of that, the first election that we have of that, you know, and the results to me that are coming in are pretty damning against the Democratic Party, but also against that strategy. We've seen now, we've had a number of different primaries. We've seen a progressive blowout in state after state after state, including of really good candidates like Dennis Kucinich, like Paula Jean Swearrigan, like others that we've had that are all losing in mass. I think our revolution's candidates, of the candidates that they've run for Congress and Senate and above, all of them have lost. So we're beginning to see this pattern that we actually got a preview of in 2016, and that is that when the Democratic Party is faced with a choice between a progressive that is credible and that is strong, is rooted in the community, stands up for what the majority of people are calling for, with, you know, healthcare, a single payer, free public college, you know, getting money out of politics, everything that we stand for as progressives. When they're faced with a choice between that and an establishment candidate that they know has less of a chance to win, they would rather really throw that election than let progressives come to power.
Right. And I think it's time for the Democratic Party to be taken to its knees. And I know a lot of people are going to be awfully angry at me for saying this, but they need to be chopped off at the knee. They have sand beneath their feet, and they need to go away, or they need to come on and start supporting the platform of the Democratic Party. If the leaders at the state level, and like for instance, David Pepper, our leader in Ohio, he's a good guy. I consider David my friend. Liz Shirley, who works there, she is an absolutely wonderful person who I consider my friend. I really do, and it's heartbreaking to me. This isn't about me, but it does break my heart. So it's hard for me to say these things, but I'm sorry. They need to be chopped off. They need to go away. If they cannot get behind the platform of this party and to stand tall with it, I would love for David Pepper to call Richard Cordray out on these things. If I was heading up, which I never would, but let's say I was the head of the Democratic Party in Ohio, the first thing I would have done when these things came to my attention is I'd have called him out publicly. You need to answer to the voters. What in the hell is going on here? When we vetted you, we didn't know about this. You need to answer. Why won't you talk to the voters about why you won't support banning assault weapons, semi-automatic weapons? What's going on, Rich? This isn't about who we are. You want to run on our ticket? Get with the program. And that should be done across the board. We've got Republicans. We have, what do you call them? Libertarians. We have, there's another party that's running on the Democratic Party ticket. They need to be called out by our leadership. And hard, put it in the press, put it out all over. You know, we got a guy named Bill Smith that's been running for Ohio 2 congressional district that covers southern Ross County and several other southern counties. He's a Tea Party candidate. Nobody's telling anybody that. And every year, this is the third time in 6 years this guy's ran. And every year he gains votes because the name Bill Smith is common. And it's believed that when people have a common name and voters don't know who they are, I'll vote for Bill. That sounds like someone I might know, which is sad, but it so happens. But yeah, but if the Democratic leaders were given permission by their membership to say, hey, we want you to do this, and we push hard, then think of how that could change the Democratic Party just in and of itself. We've got Republicans all over we've got Democrats that don't support a woman's freedom to choose.
And it always struck me as odd too that the Democrats and Clinton's campaign, they fought tooth and nail to prevent us from winning things inside the platform. In 2016, even though privately, as we saw in the WikiLeaks emails, they were saying that, you know, they were kind of like laughing at us as Bernie delegates and as Bernie supporters and platform committee members for even caring about what was in the platform, because they thought it was a big joke, because they said, we don't care what the platform is, it's not binding, you know, it doesn't matter anyways. And so, you know, but that was still very telling that they were fighting us tooth and nail over something that they themselves considered symbolic and not real. But then it makes it even more ironic, too, that when the party then came out with its better deal, you know, the lame better deal, because it's kind of like, wait a minute, didn't the party already have a platform? You know, and even then, and there were at least like a few progressive, like, you know, bones that were thrown into that. So why are you passing another platform that is even more conservative to run on? You know, why does that even exist? But I wanted to ask you, Portia, you know, what did you make of Elizabeth Warren's endorsement of Cordray?
It didn't surprise me at all, because he's her guy. He's her guy, right? She worked to get him into her little department. I'm so aggravated. I can't even think of it. The Consumer Bureau of something. Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. Thank you. And that's another thing that just burns my ass, is that, okay, Rich did some work. He did retrieve some money. I didn't feel it. My neighbors didn't feel it. Nobody got any extra money down here in Southern Ohio. Nobody's life changed because of it. But that's what his platform's about. If he wants to beat DeWine, he's got to tell the people what he's going to do for the people. And what he did in Washington don't mean jack shit. And to anybody that's in the know, I want to know why there weren't any prosecutions. None of these people went to jail. None of them.
Yeah.
And they're saying that Rich has a progressive behind him. Well, guess what, Mike DeWine? Elizabeth's not a progressive. But that's what DeWine's trying to already paint Rich Cordray as. And he's not a progressive. Elizabeth Warren is not a progressive. They're centrists. They support war. They support the things that the Poor People Campaign is fighting against. You mentioned it. And what I fight against, and I have been all my life, I don't want to go to war. I don't want dirty water. I don't want dirty air, and I don't want dirty soil. And I don't want children growing up having to worry about asthma. And it just goes on and on and on. But Elizabeth Warren is a terrible disappointment to me. She's not a bad woman, but shit, you know, she's working off the corporate money just like Rich is, and just like the Clintons did. You know, in my mind right now, what I'm thinking about is, you know, celebrating, sitting here in my living room with my husband when Bill Clinton was elected. So excited. Oh, Jim, the baby boomers have arrived. Yeah, you know, and Bill's up there playing his sax and everything is just absolutely fantastic. And then the son of a bitch is behind the scenes getting rid of Glass-Steagall, bringing on welfare reform that destroyed poor people. It destroyed them. It took people who were in poverty into dire poverty. His so-called prison reform, it destroyed the lives of Black and brown people and poor white Appalachian and poor white inner city people. And they didn't give a shit because they were being funded by the corporate people who wanted the prison system, the private prison systems, and on it goes. And I just, you know, I feel badly that I wasn't aware of what was going on. I trusted them, the New Democrats. I thought the Democrats, I associated it with the baby boomers and the people who thought like I did. And they just did a hell of a job snowballing us. Hell of a job. I idolize Hillary Clinton. I voted for her against Obama.
I mean, you know, right. I mean, oftentimes the Democrats get away with things that the Republicans could never do. I mean, from like Bill Clinton, you know, picked up right where Bush Sr. left off on NAFTA, you know, and the unions became so disillusioned by that a lot of them left the Democratic Party at that time, you know, and like you said, you know, gutting welfare, destroying financial protections. And then Obama comes over, you know, and laying the groundwork for the Great Recession, you know, what Bill Clinton did by deregulating derivatives, by deregulating the financial sector. And then Obama, of course, comes in and he's the one who picks up right on not prosecuting them like Richard Cordray, just like you said. You know, the way that I kind of think of, I mean, Elizabeth Warren, I completely agree with you. She's a centrist. You know, even within the spectrum of the Democratic Party. And I kind of see her too as someone who, you know, she had the power during the 2016 campaign to, I think, have pushed, you know, Bernie much further. And, you know, and we were right there. It's kind of like we were at the gates of the Bastille, storming the Bastille. And we looked to our ally over there, Elizabeth Warren, you know, Liz, you know, activate the battering ram, Liz, activate the battering ram. And she just kind of looked back at us, didn't do a thing, you know, complete silence while the guards overwhelmed us, you know. So I think that's kind of how I see Elizabeth Warren. You know, it's like, you know, who really, who are your allies, you know, if when the minute you need them most, you know, they're not there for you.
We were waylaid by her. She's not our ally. She never was our ally. She just talked a good talk, and she didn't walk the walk. If she would have endorsed Bernie, we would have taken this. We wouldn't have Donald Trump today.
Well,
Bernie came on her shoulders too.
Bernie came within 0.3% in Iowa, and if she had endorsed him before that, you know, then he would have won Iowa, you know, and so then he would have won Iowa and New Hampshire. And I think the party would have employed other mechanisms to continue to suppress Bernie. So I'm not sure if he would have won anyways, but she would have had a hell of a much better chance, you know. And she didn't give him that when she could have. So I agree with you. The last thing I want to ask you,
it's in her future because she ain't a progressive, and I would encourage everybody to stop allowing anybody to call you a liberal. We are not liberals. That's a dirty, filthy word to me. And when people call me a liberal, I'm like, no, I am not. I am a progressive. Liberal is dirty word.
Well, it was one other thing that I was wondering that you might know something about, and that is I read that a couple of Kucinich's staffers have alleged election fraud. Do you know anything about that?
No, I don't. But I do want to make sure to talk about Tara Samples, his lieutenant governor choice, and she's just fantastic. And she is the city councilwoman in Akron, and she's done some amazing work. Tara had 2 babies before she graduated from high school. And here she is running for lieutenant governor of Ohio. Her story is just amazing. It's just a young Black woman who has risen to where she is today. And so let's not forget about Tara in the context of Dennis. And if they had won, that would have been the first time in the entire history of the state of Ohio's Democratic Party that a Black woman or a brown woman would have been elected to a statewide office. The Democratic Party really needs to take a strong look at itself because, you know, we all know, if we know the history of the Democratic Party, they were the racists, right? They were the ones way back when that were wearing the KKK robes, and they're still wearing them. Not all of them. And the ones that aren't are turning their eyes to the ones that are. And I think that is why I left the party, because I will not support racism. And I don't give a damn who gets mad at me. I will not go there with anybody. I will not be affiliated with any organization, group, hang out at a table at the local bar, whatever. If somebody starts talking that stuff, I'm going to call them out. You don't have to start a scene or anything, but we have got to call people out that are doing this, that are promoting this process of racism in our country.
Right.
Gun-toting, semi-automatic carrying people has a damn problem.
There has to be some kind of floor, on what a party is going to stand for, before you even consider it sufficiently different, I think, from the Republican Party to want to even support it. I wish Dennis and Tara had run as independents. I think they could have won. Good.
I don't know what the rules are, but I would love to see him go there. I'd love to see him go there. I would love it. And I would whip their asses.
Oh, it would be amazing. Yeah.
Make it 4, all right? We've got the Green candidate, we've got DeWine, we've got Cordray, and then we'd have 4, so it would make them so much easier to win. I'd love to see him go there, but I don't know if they will.
Unfortunately, he can't because there's something called the sore loser loss, which doesn't let you run in one party's primary and lose there and then run again. So if he would have had to have done it from the start, not run in the Democratic Party primary. And if he
law go state by state.
No. Sorry.
Is that a national law or is that a state by state law?
Almost every state has it.
Because I don't know. And you had mentioned Paula Jean Swearingen, and oh my God, she did amazing. She pulled so many votes for such a small little amount of donations. And if the Democratic Party in West Virginia had gotten behind her, she would have beat Joe Manchin. There's no doubt in my mind. None. And Cordray, it's just such a disappointment. He doesn't even live 45 minutes away from where I live. And I want to tell you, I'm a gun owner, all right? We have a shotgun in the corner. The shells it's not loaded, but the shells are close by. We have a .357 Magnum by our bed. We live on Route 104. It's a drug corridor. It's a sex trafficking corridor. We have 2 prisons that are less than maybe 8 miles away from our home. Sometimes the sheriff knocks on the door, you know, Mrs. Boulger, we need to check your barns and all because we've got an escaped prisoner. We don't hunt, but we do have firearms for protection. And I will blow your fucking head off if you come around here trying to hurt me. I will. If I get a chance, I will. Don't come trying to hurt me or my family, or, you know, I'll take the measures that I have to take. But people hunt for food around here, and they have every right. There's a lot of poor people, and there's some people that aren't poor. They just love deer meat. All right, deer meat is good. It's delicious if you're a meat eater. But people do not hunt animals to eat with semi-automatic weapons. It's not even legal in the state of Ohio to hunt with a semi-automatic weapon. People have semi-automatic weapons to kill other people or to make themselves feel important. So Richard Cordray's thinking is not rational. It's not rational. You come through my house, if I got a double-barrel shotgun, I'm going to blow you back out of the door. Just 1 shot, 2 for sure. Boom. Boom. You won't be.
Well, everyone now it's official, and everyone knows. No one can't say you didn't warn them.
Yeah, they come to my house and they try to hurt me. I'm gonna, if they come unannounced, all right. It's a scary world out here. I hope no one thinks I'm mean now, but
make sure you call Portia and tell her you're coming to visit before you do.
Call me.
I wanted to ask you, Portia, too, because about your organizing for the Poor People's Campaign. And so we, as the Movement for a People's Party, are national partners with the Poor People's Campaign. We've been mobilizing people to the state capitals, to the Monday civil disobedience mass actions. This Monday was the first, and I was in Washington, D.C. I was arrested along with Reverend William Barber and Reverend Liz Theoharis on First Street, right off of the Capitol, for blocking the street and for protesting conditions for the poor, systemic racism, militarism, the war economy, ecological devastation, and there was nowhere that I would rather have been than right there with Reverend Barber on that front line, being arrested for what is right. Like I told you before, Portia, you know, there's a moment that comes when the police surround you and they cut you off from other activists who are not in the street, and they form a line around you, you know, and it hits you in that moment that the state is against you. But it also hits you that you have people right to your left and to your right, who are with you, and who are fighting this fight with you, and you feel that, you know, and there's an incredible kinship among those of you who are willing to get arrested for that cause. You know, I was reminded of an exchange between Henry David Thoreau and Ralph Waldo Emerson in the 1850s, when Thoreau was arrested for refusing to pay a poll tax, for refusing to pay taxes to the government. And Emerson came to visit him and looked at him and kind of shook his head and said, you know, look at yourself, Henry. What are you doing in there? And Thoreau responded, look at you, Emerson. What are you doing out there? And that's how I felt being there. And I you know, and it is such a great privilege to be organizing with the Poor People's Campaign. And Portia, I want to hear what you're doing too, the work that you're doing in Ohio.
I feel very, very, very honored to be a part of it. And my role is social media. And so I do the Twitter and Facebook for Ohio Poor People's Campaign. So come on over and give us a like and follow us and retweet us and interact with us. But I also am on the coordinating committee, and I get the pleasure of working with the rest of the group and doing the planning, the organizing. We have an amazing group of people from all over the state that are just working their tails off. And we were at the State House, at the Ohio State House this Monday, and we had a rally, and we didn't engage in civil disobedience on Monday. We're still working to get our legal team together. It's really difficult to get, we've got a lot of attorneys that are interested and very supportive, but it's very hard to get that process together. But we'll do it, we'll get it there. But what we did do that was really very empowering for me, to say the least, is we have a demand letter, and it's on the Twitter feed on Poor People's Campaign, and I keep sharing it and sharing it and sharing it. By the way, guys, if you don't know, if you retweet something and then you unretweet and tweet it again, retweet it, you keep getting more and more and more coverage. Because when you retweet something, your followers only see it if they're looking at your Twitter feed at that time. Okay, so that's a really good little tip to know. But the demands are there in the letter, but we delivered it to Mike DeWine at the Rhodes office tower across the street from the State House. And then we marched all the way over to the Ohio Democratic headquarters. And we didn't know if Rich would be there, but we knew that they definitely have very tight connection with Rich. And David Pepper was not there either, but Liz Shirley and delivered the letter of demands, and they were very gracious and gave us water. And I had an opportunity, to put my arms around Liz and tell her how much I loved her, but I couldn't stand the Democratic Party anymore, and I had left. And I filled her ear with the information that I want everybody to know about Rich, and people are shocked when they hear it, but it's from great sources, strong, it's unbelievable to me what's going on. But the Poor People's Campaign gives me more hope than anything. It is the most powerful movement in this country. One of the things that I love about it is that they will not engage with politicians, never get the mic. They don't get on the stage. If you want to come as an individual citizen to stand with the people, that's fine. But don't be coming toting your campaign there. And that's what makes it pure, in my opinion. The other thing that makes it really pure is that you don't have to be a Christian. You don't have to be a Muslim. It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter what your faith is. It doesn't matter if you're white, brown, or black. It doesn't matter if you're male or female or trans or bi. Everybody is welcome. Everybody is welcome as long as they have a moral compass. And that's what's wrong with our country. People don't have moral compasses anymore, or they're willing to push it to the point where they're no longer moral. And I'm not trying to judge, but we have certain standards in this country if we want to have a strong society. The basic foundation of society is honesty and treating our people right. Our constitutions in our state and in our nation's constitution talk about taking care of the people. And so that's what's beautiful about the Poor People's Campaign, is they're holding people accountable that are supposed to be supporting and protecting our rights. And it's working, and it's going to work. But to get arrested is a scary thing. It's not for the, if you're putting yourself out there on the line, you better understand what it means. And so the Poor People's Campaign is doing a fine job of helping people understand that too. It's not for the lighthearted.
No, that's right.
So you don't know what's going to happen to you.
That's right. They don't take it lightly. It was very well organized. They told us exactly what to expect when we were in a training. So the Poor People's Campaign insists that everyone who's going to participate in nonviolent direct action participate in a nonviolence training beforehand. And at the training, they also tell you, what's, how the police is going to respond probably. And what they kind of walk you through the action that you're going to go through as well. And it's all very well planned. They make you as comfortable as you can be when you're making that stand. And I thought it was so impressive that 1,000 people got arrested across the country with the Poor People's Campaign on Monday in 37 different states that they organized in, and that was day one. And the amount of coverage also that it managed to get was very impressive.
There's no blackout on this, and I find that remarkable. Here in Ohio, we've got amazing press coverage, and I just want to give a shout out to some of the reporters, because Joe Ingles, for instance, with the Ohio State Bureau, and WOSU, I wish I could remember the reporter's name, they did fantastic journalism. There was no bias, there was no slant, it was just exactly what went on. And thank you, Joe Ingles, thank you, because she's a fantastic woman, and I've known her for a good while from protests and being at the State House, so she's really a bang up. And we need more people like Joe and Ingles. It's a woman. And MSNBC covered it very well. I found it remarkable, Nick. Quite remarkable.
I think
no
part of
turn to it.
I think part of the reason for that is that the Democratic Party is going to make, and actually has been making, a really furious effort to co-opt this movement, and they will continue to try. Like, one of the things I respect most about them is what you said, is that they don't allow politicians on the stage. It's not about individual politicians and individual parties. It is specifically about the issues. And I hope that's a stance that they really maintain, because there are people, the Democratic Party is going to work very hard, and their donors too. They're going to work very hard to try to pull that movement into the Democratic Party and make it nothing, reduce it to nothing but a Democratic turnout movement, so that all of it in the end amounts to just trying to turn people out. Oh, and the solution to militarism and systemic racism and poverty is go vote for your local Democrat, after the progressives have been eliminated from the race too. So, it won't work. That's what I think they're going to try. I've been really, I've been glad to see that inside the Poor People's Campaign and from Reverend Barber, there is a resistance to that. And I think that the movement, if it can maintain that resistance and that independence from politicians and from parties, it will be something, it will be like what Dr. Martin Luther King was planning in 1968. It will be like what it was before he was even assassinated, as if he'd been able to carry it through. I think it will be that significant.
There is no doubt in my mind, the Democratic Party will never take over the Poor People's Campaign, ever. We wouldn't be having a Poor People's Campaign if the Democratic Party had done their job. Okay, they're not the friend of the poor people, all right? When we've got politicians like Richard Cordray and Hillary Clinton hedging on $15 an hour, they're not our friend, all right? When Hillary came out and said that she wouldn't support $15 an hour across the board, you cannot buy a home on $15 an hour. That's only $30,000 a year if you work 40 hours a week. It's not possible. And for these people to have the damn nerve not to support people being able to feed their family, how dare they? How dare they? And I don't know if there's a heaven or hell, but I know that there's good people and there's people who choose not to be good. And people who choose not to be good don't support poor people. When we've got people dying because they can't afford medical care, that's violence.
Yeah.
We've got babies that their mamas can't take them to the doctor, that's violence. When we've got moms and dads that can't feed their children healthy food, that's violence. Yeah. All right? We got people who can't turn on the water and get a clean glass of water, that's violence. And coming back to the Ohio governor's race for the primary. You know, they tried to damn the hell out of Dennis and Tara because Dennis had met with Assad. The violence is here in Ohio, baby. There's people in Ohio, a lot of people in Ohio that don't have plumbing, that don't have clean water, that have filthy air. Right here in my county, Glatfelder, which is a paper mill, we have they're like the top 10 polluters. People all over this county have asthma and lung ailments. We're an agriculture society, so we're dealing with the pollution from agriculture, you know, GMO products and crop dusting, and just everything is just totally upside down. And when Richard Cordray was asked about fracking, he would not commit to ban fracking.
Wow.
You know how Hillary said that we want our ponies? I guess that's a pony.
That's a pony, yeah. I guess that starving a child, you know, wanting food, I guess that's a pony too. That was one of the signs that that struck me most, you know, and one of the things that impressed me too at the Poor People's Campaign is, you know, exposing how what the Democratic and Republican parties do when they uphold such an unequal system, such a destructive system, that is violence. You know, when you take food from children and turn it into bombs, you know, to drop on countries that we regime change, you know, where causing thousands, you know, hundreds of thousands of more deaths over there, that is violence in every sense of the term. You know, to refuse to jail the people who caused the financial crisis, to deregulate the financial sector so that you can redline poor communities again and communities of color, you know, that is violence. Again, to set it up to dismantle the few protections that there were to begin with, you know, from Dodd-Frank on the financial sector now as we're approaching another recession, you know, so that people will have no semblance of protection whatsoever when we have another recession, when we have another crash. That is violence. That is violence against people who can't protect themselves, you know. And
the Democrats saying that, I mean, how many Democrats are coming forth and saying that they're going to confirm this torture woman? What do they call her? For a bloody something. But come on. They're not. Right. Why aren't they standing up in outrage? Why aren't they walking out? You know, the Democrats are not standing up and using all the tools in their tool chest. Nancy Pelosi has so much knowledge and so many little tricks of the trade that she knows, but she doesn't use them. She could turn that place upside down, and so could Chuck Schumer. And Chuck, what did Chuck do? He just complimented Donald for the embassy in Jerusalem. He said something good about that. Chuck Schumer saying something good about Donald Trump doing this, and what?
Well, on the one hand,
Palestinians are killed.
On the one hand, the Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer and the corporate Democrats, they pretend that Trump is kind of like, you know, the devil incarnate, but on the other hand, you know, or like a despot. But on the other hand, they're giving him more money for the military than he asks for, you know, and they're giving him surveillance powers, you know, that are like totalitarian. And so it just makes you think, you know, what is this? Is it, if you really believe those things, if you really believe, you know, that Trump is essentially like a military dictator in the making, why are you arming him, you know, with the tools to be that?
Well, I'm furious about it, but, you know, a lot of people don't know, but Hillary had more donations from the war machine corporations than all the other Republicans put together. The Democratic Party is full of war machine people, and they just have sold out. The leadership has sold out. It's up to us to bring the Democratic Party to its knees. And I would love to see it be able to reclaim itself and clean itself up. 2 years ago, after the DNC, I hung in there hoping that they would. You know, I don't know how many times I typed the hashtag clean house DNC, but they're not cleaning it up. They're not. It's clear as we watch these races across the country, they're doubling down because they want to keep their money. They want to. I don't know if it's still true, but I was told by a very reliable source that when someone runs for office, that, you know, they build their war chest up, and after 12 years, that's their money. Do you know anything about that law?
Oh, well, I know what they do. They have this process at the DCCC where they vet candidates, and the vet consists entirely not, you know, how qualified are you? Do you support, you know, things that are in the well-being, you know, for people that maximize people's well-being? Do you support policies that are progressive? Of course, it has nothing to do with that. It's just the entire interview is essentially, you know, Rolodexing you, as they call it. And so they go through your phone and figure out who is it that you can raise money for and how much money can you get. So basically, what are you worth, you know, in terms of dollars? And that's because that's the only currency they understand and that they care about. And then, you know, and you see it in the candidates that they're producing too. That's why you get people like in, so we think Ohio is bad, and it is, but look at what happened in Illinois. In Illinois, a billionaire won inside the Democratic primary, just straight out bought himself the Democratic primary.
Well,
you know?
when the Koch brothers were behind him, and Rahm Emanuel, the only reason he got his second term is because of Koch brother money. I don't know if people realize it, but Alec's headquarters is in Chicago. Y'all know Alec, right? The American Legislative Exchange Commission or Committee. I can't remember if the C is committee or commission. That's all funded by the Koch brothers. That's where we get the boilerplate legislation across this country. Our state houses are owned by the Koch brothers through Alec.
Right.
And that's why it's so important that we do run people at the local level and move them on up to our state houses and get rid of this. The Tea Party controls Ohio right now. It totally controls it. Both houses and the governor. You know, and come on, guys, Governor Kasich is not a moderate, all right? He is not a moderate. He has fracked the hell out of Ohio. He has destroyed our public education system. He is just draining the ability for local governments to provide basic services to their citizens. Governor Kasich wants to run for governor. He can tell everybody that he doesn't, but there's no doubt. Watch what he's doing. It's unbelievable that people, you know, during the primary in 2016, people were thinking, oh, well, Kasich would be all right. No. John Kasich is a nightmare.
Right.
He was a Lehman Brothers boy. Lehman Brothers was the beginning domino of the entire Great Recession that we had. Dennis, he lets people lets the brine from Pennsylvania come in and be injected into the earth in Ohio. That's why we have earthquakes in the northeastern part of Ohio. So guys, please don't buy the fact that it's not a fact that Governor Kasich is a moderate. He's not our friend.
The Democrats and Republicans, they just kind of exist now they represent the left and the right end of the billionaire spectrum, you know? So it's the people who give the money, and this is always true. It's going to be true for any party. This is why we're organizing for a People's Party, is that the party will always represent where the money comes from, you know, the funding. That's why we're entirely, you know, people-funded, grassroots, online donations, and that's all we accept, no corporate money, you know. And so with the Democratic Party, you know, taking money, and the Republican Party taking money from big donors, that's the only thing that they're going to accept. Then what you're going to get is what you should expect to see is exactly what you see in the Democratic and the Republican Party. That is, some of the billionaires and some of the donor class are a little to the left, in particular on social issues, you know, and the rest of the donors, the rest of the billionaires are to the right on social issues, you know, and they pretty much largely agree on economic issues and on foreign policy. And so that's the two parties that you get, you know, that pretty much perfectly explains where the two parties fall right now. It's the left and the right of the billionaire spectrum, and working people don't even enter the equation.
Maybe we can even reword it a wee bit to the left of the center, because when we say to the left, people potentially will perceive that as, well, they're okay. Well, someone that's just a wee bit left of center is not okay. When you look, when I first started voting, Nick, I was 19, and that's when they changed the law to let 18-year-olds vote. And I was a Republican. I voted Republican. I was an Eisenhower Republican, and I pretty much still am. President Eisenhower, during his first term, was not a warmonger. He supported the Equal Rights Amendment. He was an environmentalist. He was very pro-labor. He did good for our country. And now he would be considered a lefty, a socialist.
Radical.
A horrible man. He could never get elected president under the Republican Party.
Probably to the left of Kucinich.
That I don't know, but Dennis is. I've always supported Dennis whenever I could vote for him. I voted for Ralph Nader. I think I mentioned earlier, I voted for Ralph. He wish he would have won, but I kind of lost my train of thought. I just want people to really stop and think about the words they use. Like, please, if you're a progressive, don't let people label you liberal. Liberal doesn't mean jack anymore. Liberal is right to center. Elizabeth Warren and the people who voted for this war economy, they are not liberal.
Yeah.
They are right to center. They are warmongers. They're neocons.
A great example of how
they label you with that word liberal, because liberal doesn't mean liberal anymore.
No, it's a great example of how they hijacked the language. Liberal, neoliberal, now means conservative. And so trickle down economics, this idea that if you give all of the money to the rich people, they're going to spend it creating jobs, and then the wealth will kind of like magically distribute itself. Well, that idea existed in the Gilded Age too, and it had the same effect. It produced the Gilded Age, and they were a bit more honest back then. They called it horse and sparrow economics, because the idea was that you would give the oats to the horse, and the horse would eat them, and then it would crap them out, and the sparrows would come and pick what was left out of the crap. And the sparrows, of course, represented working people, poor people, us. So it had the exact same effect back then. It produced the Gilded Age. This astonishing level of inequality that we have right now, where you have 3 people who have as much wealth as the bottom half of the country. One person who could literally end world hunger like 3 times over. It's abominable.
Well, and people don't realize it, but it's the wealth inequality now is worse than during the Gilded Age. It's worse. So people don't realize how many poor people there are in this country. They don't really realize how severely poor people are. And it's fearful. A lot of people turn their heads because it scares them to death that they also will be poor. And I just hope that people will understand that we've got to be empathetic. I'm a retired school teacher, and I have worked with really poor children. I'll never forget a little boy named Cody, and I was teaching special education class, and I had kindergartners to 6th graders. And Cody came to me as a 6th grader, and he couldn't even read at the 2nd grade level. And he was dirty. He was a dirty little fella, dirty fingernails, filthy little face even on Monday morning. Just a wonderful child. And most of the children that come from poor homes, not all of them, they don't have access to clean things all the time. They lived in the country. They had an outhouse. I never asked him if he had plumbing, but I know he was very poor. And in the winter, he would say, oh, I'm so cold. I'm just so cold. And he would just be quivering cold. And I would ask him about the heat. And they had a coal stove in the middle of their room. He had a sheet to cover up with at night. He came to school hungry. These babies need us. They need us. But because he got some love from me and some confidence building, that baby went out of my class reading almost at the 7th grade level. And all we have to do is show a little bit of compassion. All we have to do is turn a little child into, hey, buddy, let's talk about health, you know, and not shame the child, not throw them to the back of the room. We can show love. We can love our people. There are people, all of them are, no matter whether they're over in Gaza or whether they're in the southern hills of Ross County or in Pike County. All we have to do is just show a little bit of love and compassion. That's all we have to do. It's not hard. It feels good. It feels really good to love people. Did I lose you, Nick? I don't know what happened.
Hi, Portia, can you see me? Can you hear me?
Yeah, we lost you for a minute, I think.
Sorry,
Yeah.
my computer overheated.
Really? Oh my goodness.
So I kind of had to reset it and reconnect. Yeah.
Did your hand stop working or something? Well, I was just kind of getting emotional about children and the fact that you should show them some love and kindness.
I loved what you said, and it reminded me of something, you know, that we say at the Poor People's Campaign, and that is that everybody has a right to live. Yeah. Everybody has a right to live. There's so much power in those words. Yes, Portia, is there anything you want to leave us with?
Well, I just want to thank you for reaching out. I really appreciate it. And I just want to really emphasize to everybody that we can get our work done without trashing people. You know, I think that people can feel my passion and that I'm angry. But let's turn the anger into positive action. You know, like there's a lot of really good information on Twitter and Facebook, but if there's hateful words in it, I won't retweet it. And sometimes it's really hard for me not to, because the basic message in the tweet is stuff that people should know about. But, you know, like calling Hillary Killery, and, you know, I don't know what all they'll come up with for Rich Cordray. I won't be calling Rich names. I'll be talking about my worries about him being a white nationalist sympathizer. I'll be talking about facts. But as far as the man goes, I'm just concerned about him and why he thinks the way he does. Or why has he, I won't even go so far as thinks, why has he taken the positions that he has? I don't know why he has, but if I had to venture to guess, because he wants to pull some of those radical right-wingers into the booth to vote for him. I mean, just a day or so ago, he talked to Republicans and said, I'm your guy. Okay, so it's some kind of crazy strategy. I know it is. There can't be. And who knows what he's really thinking? Who knows what some of these candidates, once they get deep into it and they allow all of these advisors and people to talk them into whatever it is they do. My God, I bet an awful lot of them think, what the hell did I get into? How can I get out of this? So yeah, just remember to be loving, everyone. We can win this. We don't have to be lovey-dovey and gooey about it, but we really, the compassion, that's what is going to make our society better. And so we don't have to to be mean, hateful, just to, you know, every now and then I drop the F-bomb, but that's just, you know, expressions. I hope I'm making sense, Nick.
You are. And Portia, it's been great to talk to you, and I look forward to seeing you too in Washington D.C. At the Poor People's Final Rally on June 23rd.
Yeah, let's keep in touch. Maybe we can figure out where everyone is, and I don't know how that will shake out. I hope there's just everybody plan on coming to D.C. All right, carpool and get people together. Maybe the People's Party can get some cheap rooms for people.
Oh, yes, we'll definitely figure out a way to bring people here. So, all right, well, I'm glad to see you there and see everybody else, see all of you guys out there as well. Thanks, Portia. And this has been our MPP-TV with Nick Branham and our special guest, Portia Boulger. And I'll talk to you guys next time.
Bye-bye.